On top of Neve Tepe, one of the three hills of Old Plovdiv. I'm just panning around much of Plovdiv that you nor I have no reason to ever see. Here in front of us now, coming from upper right to middle left, is the river. As I pan around, you'll see how the top of this could be the Thracian citadel that it was. And a couple of the more of the hills. And that area below us is the old Plovdiv, which you will see. Presumably are the original walls, unless they're restored walls, because beneath them are buttresses that are new, no doubt to protect what did remain. That looks like original wall there, and all around us as we pan. Inca walls, we can still see how these stones were modified in order to assemble them, like that juncture right there in the middle of the frame that holds that triangular rock. And then this one, even though it's weathered, we can imagine that it fit at one time perhaps quite tightly, but maybe they had a form of mortar that they also used. You can see that Plovdiv is quite an extensive city, although not too far out is the farmland. Everywhere in Bulgaria, McDonald's is. And now I'm panning into the old town. How well these irregular stones were put together. And this is in the Thracian period, which runs back, I think, 300 to 400 BC. And you can see from the height of the wall behind there that these were fairly extensive works up at the top. Walls may suggest that the Romans weren't the only smart guys in town, or the Romans may well have added to what the Thracians had. And we're seeing some of that also. I don't know. Darium not far away from the theater, and you wonder if some of these pedestals and so forth didn't ultimately and originally come from there. Beyond that lapidarium to that sculpture that looks very much like what you'd see in Southeast Asia. And across from it, this house. Again, wood structural details and painted detail. Pretty intersection. Again, notice this cut off corner. Looking lane, doesn't that invite you? Many pretty little residential intersections in this old town. Now imagine when this building was new, or at least maintained, and plastered on the above, and the upstairs was used. And the small narrow walkways of Orid, maybe Barat. This fella can get a car, and no doubt that way. Home garden. Poke the camera in here but not go in. Another old house. Bit of sculptural whimsy outside the Fine Arts Museum. An interesting element, if you'll notice, is his drawing hand is through the frame. This is Captain whatever his name is, Leonardo da Vinci Street, although you will see no signs in any language that I can see that will tell you that. And you go this way. right where that blinking sign is, well, on this side of the street from that, you'll come down to this alleyway, or this gap between these apartment buildings where there's this little parklet here, and you go back in this way. It's up to whatever that is the kids are playing. You look to your left, and there's the first time that you'll be able to see what you're looking for. It's enough area for what it is. We would call these tenement houses, something a notch or so above that, I think. The first button on the left, which is that one, it's not that one, it's that one right there. It's what you're looking for. So what you're getting when you get through this door, which he would have to open for you, you come into here, you go down that stairwell. There's an elevator. And I don't know what floor you have to go to because it's not relevant to where the button is positioned. This to me looks not so scary now as it did for some reason when I first came here. Walk in and turn around and walk out, is there's a little kitchen that the older lady, his aunt, has. It's very small with a little table. It's where she and her son or grandson live and eat. And then you go into the 2 bedrooms, each with some beds. It's very neat and clean, and that's it. No need of any of the normal services like people who are knowledgeable, people who speak English. The old lady speaks none whatsoever. If you want facilities like a room and television, they have no Wi-Fi. If you want the normal facilities of a hostel, this is clearly not a hostel. Must make a nice sound with those different sized bells. Pretty statue. Slim, elongated Christ. Very pretty statue. Perhaps reflects rising up into heaven. Has that feel about it. Behind us here actually is that big amphitheater we were in yesterday. This is the medieval mosque. It's closed today. It's used for a contemporary art museum. We've learned nothing usually of much aesthetic interest on the outside, and usually pretty plain on the inside. And these abandoned small houses built well after the church was probably built. Pretty old church that I could see in the distance. Right next to the mosque, almost maybe 100 feet away. I assume it's still used. These houses look like they're right out of some old, damp English novel. You can imagine when this was a very pretty square, it still is. This church and what I think is this school here, perhaps a high school. It's even still, some of the buildings are very new, nicely done. You can imagine that's a nice unit up there on top, and that one there also. Church, beautiful inside. Dark, but those lovely domes all the way down that nave. Down here a little ways just to get the flavor of the neighborhood. I was wrong, of course. This is not a mosque, this is a bathhouse. And at least those two domes. There should be more usually, I don't know why there aren't. This is the backwards route of getting up into the upper reaches of the old city, as you can see by the lack of use. Couple, when I first came up here, disappeared down the Alice in Wonderland mouse hole or whatever they called it, and this is how they came up, the way or went down the way I just came up.